The 64 Gates of Human Design. Complete Introduction and Study Guide. Introduction. The 64 gates of the Rave Mandala form the living architecture of human design. This audiobook introduces each gate, its energy, shadows, and gifts, organized by the four quarters that structure human consciousness. The gates move counterclockwise around the mandala wheel starting at gate 13. Each quarter has its own theme and purpose: initiation through the mind, civilization through form, duality through bonding, and mutation through transformation. Together they form the complete map of human consciousness as transmitted by Ra Uruhu. Each gate description includes its location, circuit, theme, shadow expressions, and integration practices. This is introductory material, a foundation for developing fluency with the gates, not a deep dive into lines, planets, or advanced variables. These descriptions were synthesized using AI as a learning tool, drawing from publicly available human design knowledge. For Ra's original teachings, I encourage you to explore resources at jovianarchive.com. These gates reveal themselves gradually with each listening. Notice which ones resonate, which ones challenge you, and which ones feel like home. This is your map too. May it serve your own journey of self-discovery. Quarter 1. The Quarter of Initiation. Purpose fulfilled through mind. The journey around the mandala begins in the quiet of the mind. Not the mind that thinks, but the mind that witnesses. This quarter opens the human story with awareness itself, the capacity to observe, to question, to remember, and to search for meaning. Here, consciousness doesn't build or act or bond. It listens, it wonders, it turns inward toward the mysterious terrain of thought, memory, intuition, and insight. If this quarter had a single image, it would be a lantern in the dark, soft, steady, illuminating just enough for the next step. These gates hold the spark of inner initiation, the first flicker of consciousness saying, "What is this? What does it mean?" They gather our experiences, examine our patterns, and reach toward the mysteries that can't be forced into understanding. This is where the human narrative begins, with the willingness to sit with the unknown. Together, these gates form an arc that moves from listening to remembering, from sensing to reflecting, from inspiration to mental clarity. They teach us that before anything can be expressed or shared or built, it must first be seen, felt, understood. Meaning precedes form, and this quarter is the birthplace of meaning. You may recognize this energy in the moments you pause before responding, in the pull to make sense of life's experiences, or in the questions that won't leave you alone. It's the part of you that seeks coherence, that holds stories, that returns again and again to what feels unresolved. Not to obsess, but to understand. As you move into the gates of this quarter, allow yourself to slow down. Let the mind open rather than tighten. These are the frequencies that initiate your inner life, preparing the ground for everything that follows. We begin in silence with a witness. From here, the journey unfolds. Gate 13. The Listener. Fellowship with Men. Location: G Center. Channel: 1333, Channel of the Prodigal. Circuit: Collective Sensing Circuit, Abstract Process. Theme: The Gate of the Witness, the capacity to hear and hold collective memory. not self-distortion, oversharing, gossip, emotional absorption, pretending to listen, rescuing others' stories. Gate 13 is the ear of humanity, the receptive aspect of the G-center that gathers the experiences of others and preserves the collective record. Ra described this as the keeper of secrets, a magnetic force that draws others to confide their stories. As part of the collective sensing stream, it functions as a storehouse of the past, gathering patterns of human experience that will eventually distill into shared wisdom through Gate 33. Here identity turns inward, listening for the thread of meaning that connects individual stories to collective understanding. This gate teaches that true leadership and storytelling begin in silence, through the power to receive without judgment. When operating consciously, Gate 13 listens deeply, holding space for others without trying to fix or interpret. Its presence invites honesty and healing simply through being heard, gathering experience that will inform collective knowing over time. In shadow, we confuse listening with helping, absorbing others' pain as if it were our own, leaking personal details to feel connected, or interrupting with premature advice. The not-self may feel burdened by others' confessions, or become addicted to hearing drama to feel needed and important. At work or in friendship, this distortion shows up as over-involvement in people's emotional lives, or keeping secrets that create false intimacy. The work with Gate 13 is learning the boundary between witness and participant. Listening is sacred when it comes from openness, not obligation or rescue. Notice when you lean in to solve or control rather than simply receive. Your gift is not to carry the story or fix the person. It's to honor the experience as it moves through its natural cycle. True collective listening allows patterns to emerge without force, letting experience complete and return to silence so wisdom can eventually be shared. Gate 49. Principles. Revolution. Location, Solar Plexus Center. Channel 1949, the channel of synthesis. Circuit, Tribal Ego Circuit, Defense Process. Theme, the Gate of Revolution, the emotional laws that protect the tribe. Not self-distortion, moral rigidity, emotional ultimatums, rejection of difference, fear of betrayal, punitive withdrawal. Gate 49 embodies the emotional threshold that defines what can and cannot belong within the tribe. It governs the laws of acceptance and rejection, the values and principles that hold communities together. As part of the tribal circuit, this gate's energy ensures emotional and material protection by upholding agreements rooted in shared values. Its revolution is not random. It arises when the old rules no longer sustain the heart of the tribe. When aligned, this gate channels the solar plexus's awareness to declare, what no longer serves love must fall away. In its higher expression, Gate 49 feels into the emotional contracts that bind people together and courageously ends what is no longer aligned. It seeks renewal through integrity and clarity. Yet in the not-self, fear drives reaction, drawing hard lines, shaming those who differ, or making emotional threats to enforce loyalty. This distortion can lead to self-righteousness or emotional coldness, cutting off bonds that might only need renegotiation. Many with this gate experience cycles of emotional rebellion, followed by guilt and loneliness. To integrate Gate 49, anchor in emotional clarity before taking action. Feel the wave fully and allow time for discernment before declaring revolution. Ask, Am I acting from fear of loss or love of truth? True revolution serves the heart. It transforms the rules not to punish or exclude, but to renew the spirit of belonging. Gate 30. The clinging fire. The fates. Location: solar plexus center. Channel 4130, channel of recognition. Circuit: the individual knowing circuit, centering process. Theme: the gate of desire, the intensity of feeling that fuels experience. Not self-distortion, emotional obsession, chasing intensity, victimhood to passion, dramatizing pain, burnout through longing. Gate 30 burns with the fire of desire, the emotional fuel that propels the individual through life's spectrum of experience. Connected to the roots gate 41, it transforms potential into passion, igniting the feeling tone that colors the human story. Within the individual knowing stream, this gate doesn't seek comfort or control. It seeks to feel life in all its rawness. The frequency here is fated. It pulls the soul into experiences that fulfill the emotional theme it carries, regardless of expectation. When expressed consciously, Gate 30 embodies emotional maturity, the ability to feel deeply without becoming consumed. Its power lies in allowing desire to move as energy, not demand. In shadow, this gate becomes trapped in emotional craving, mistaking intensity for meaning. The not-self chases relationships, dreams, or highs that mirror its inner fire, confusing emotional drama with purpose. Over time, this creates exhaustion, disappointment, or the sense that life never measures up to imagined passion. Integration begins by honoring the desire itself, not its object. Feel the longing fully, without acting to satisfy it. This is the alchemy of Gate 30, transforming craving into creative fuel. Notice when you're gripping an outcome instead of surrendering to the feeling. True desire doesn't seek to possess, it seeks to awaken life. Let the fire burn cleanly, illuminating what's real, rather than consuming what's passing. Gate 55, Abundance, the spirit of the self. Location: solar plexus center. Channel 3955, channel of emoting. Circuit: individual knowing circuit, spiritual process. Theme: the gate of spirit, the emotional frequency of abundance and faith. Not self-distortion, emotional dependency, despair, mood addiction, spiritual bypassing, scarcity thinking. Gate 55 is the pulse of spirit moving through emotion, the potential for deep abundance or profound melancholy. As part of the individual knowing circuit, its frequency is deeply mutative, oscillating between despair and ecstasy, depending on the openness of the heart. This gate teaches that abundance is not measured by outer gain, but by the inner capacity to trust the flow of life. When spirit is recognized as source, emotion becomes the medium through which creativity and transformation emerge. In its exalted state, Gate 55 lives in faith, expressing joy that is uncaused, an inner knowing that life provides in perfect timing. It inspires others through its authenticity and surrender to emotional truth. But in distortion, the solar plexus's waves dominate awareness, one day hopeful, the next despairing. The not-self clings to external stability or substances to manage emotional highs and lows. It can also spiritualize denial, pretending to be above its feelings, while inwardly afraid of their depth. To embody Gate 55, honor emotion as a divine language, not a problem to fix. Allow moods to rise and fall like tides, without losing connection to the deeper current of spirit. When despair comes, let it deepen your faith rather than collapse your hope. True abundance emerges not from control but from surrender. The recognition that your spirit itself is the source of all fulfillment. The family. Location, Solar Plexus Center. Channel 4037. Channel of Community. Circuit, Tribal Ego Circuit. Defense Process. Theme, The Gate of Harmony. The emotional bonds that hold community together. Not self-distortion, people-pleasing, emotional manipulation, guilt-driven giving, conditional warmth, resentment when unappreciated. Gate 37 is the hearth of human connection, the emotional glue that binds families, groups, and tribes through affection, loyalty, and shared values. Within the tribal circuit, its energy establishes social contracts based on mutual support and protection. Here, love expresses itself through touch, care, and practical commitment. When healthy, Gate 37 builds trust by honoring agreements and respecting the emotional rhythms of others. Its warmth creates belonging, while its wisdom reminds the tribe that true harmony requires fairness and emotional reciprocity. In alignment, this gate offers emotional generosity without expectation, recognizing that real community rests on honesty and shared responsibility. In shadow, however, Gate 37 often confuses love with obligation. The not-self overextends to keep the peace, saying yes to avoid rejection or guilt. This can breed quiet resentment or martyrdom when efforts go unseen. Others may unconsciously use emotion as leverage, offering affection when needs are met and withdrawing it when boundaries arise. Such distortions fracture trust and erode genuine intimacy. The work with Gate 37 is to give and receive love freely, without tallying what's owed. Notice when you act from duty rather than devotion. True harmony grows from emotional transparency, not sacrifice. Practice saying what you truly feel and allowing others to meet you there. When giving springs from wholeness, your warmth nourishes rather than depletes, restoring balance to the heart of community. Gate 63. Doubt. After completion. Location, Head Center. Channel 63-4, the channel of logic. Circuit, the collective understanding circuit, logic process. Theme, the gate of doubt, the pressure to question and verify patterns. Not self-distortion, chronic skepticism, mental looping, perfectionism, mistrust of intuition, anxiety-driven analysis. Gate 63 is the spark of inquiry, the logical pressure in the head center that demands proof before belief. As part of the collective understanding stream, its energy ensures that patterns are tested and reliable before being shared with the collective. This gate is not here to believe, it's here to question. Doubt, when conscious, refines logic and sharpens awareness, driving the human mind toward innovation and accuracy. It is the beginning of understanding, not its enemy. In its higher expression, Gate 63 embraces uncertainty as a tool for clarity. It knows that doubt, when properly grounded, leads to discovery and progress. Yet in the not-self, doubt becomes obsession. The mind fixates on what might be wrong, questioning others' motives, its own decisions, or even life itself. Endless verification replaces trust, leading to paralysis, cynicism, or intellectual superiority. This can show up as constant second-guessing, compulsive research, or dismissing insight that cannot be proven. Integration begins by letting doubt rest in awareness without rushing to resolve it. The goal is not to silence questioning, but to relax its grip. Notice when doubt arises as pressure to control or avoid uncertainty. True logic flowers in openness, not fear. Practice grounding your questions in reality, then release them. When trust and discernment balance, doubt becomes a clear lens through which truth reveals itself naturally. Gate 22, Grace. Location, the solar plexus center. Channel 1222, channel of openness. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit, emotive process. Theme, the gate of openness, emotional grace, and the expression of spirit through feeling. Not self-distortion, mood dependence, social withdrawal, dramatic emotional display, seeking validation through charm, fear of rejection. Gate 22 carries the emotional frequency of grace, the refinement of spirit expressed through feeling, beauty, and poise. Flowing through the individual knowing circuit, its energy is deeply mutative, influencing others through the emotional tone it transmits. This is the gate of openness to spirit, to music, to art, and to intimacy. Its power lies not in words, but in presence. When the emotional wave is clear, Gate 22 radiates elegance and magneticism. When turbulent, it withdraws or becomes unpredictable. At its best, Gate 22 allows the spirit to speak through emotion, offering kindness, charm, and beauty, without agenda. It brings depth and refinement to relationships and creative work. In shadow, however, the not-self identifies with the highs and lows of its moods, using charm to mask insecurity or withdrawing to avoid vulnerability. Social interactions can become conditional or feeling ready, leading to inconsistency or emotional volatility. The fear of being misunderstood often hides behind sophistication or aloofness. To integrate Gate 22, allow emotions to flow without defining yourself through them. Grace arises naturally when you stop trying to perform it. Notice how your energy shifts others. Are you sharing openness or projecting mood? Practice presence in silence, letting beauty express itself through your tone, gaze, and touch. When you rest in authentic feeling, your grace becomes an effortless transmission of spirit itself. Gate 36, the darkening of the light, crisis. Location, solar plexus center. Channel, 3536, channel of transitoriness. Circuit, collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of crisis, emotional depth born through experience. Not self-distortion, creating drama, fear of change, emotional reactivity, avoidance or discomfort, compulsive seeking of new experiences. Gate 36 governs the collective's capacity to grow through crisis. The solar plexus gate that transforms chaos into emotional wisdom. Within the collective sensing stream, it fuels humanity's hunger for experience, pushing the story forward through feeling. Each crisis, personal or collective, holds the seed of renewal. This gate thrives on the unknown, learning through direct immersion in life's transitions, rather than through theory. Emotional intensity here is not a flaw, but the engine of evolution. When expressed with awareness, Gate 36 brings compassion and adaptability in the face of uncertainty. It knows that every storm eventually reveals meaning. In shadow, the not-self fears or clings to intensity, either manufacturing drama to feel alive or avoiding difficulty altogether. Emotional waves can erupt impulsively, creating turmoil in relationships and projects. Others may experience the 36 as restless, never satisfied, or addicted to novelty as a distraction from inner discomfort. The integration of Gate 36 lies in embracing crisis as a natural stage of growth. When challenge arises, breathe rather than react. Allow emotion to unfold before taking action. Ask, what lesson is this revealing? True maturity here is born not from avoiding chaos, but from finding clarity within it. When you trust the process of experience itself, each crisis becomes a passage into deeper emotional truth. Gate 25, the innocent. Location, G Center. Channel 2551, channel of initiation. Circuit, individual knowing circuit, centering process. Theme, the gate of universal love, the innocence that transcends judgment. Not self-distortion, moral superiority, emotional detachment, self-sacrifice, spiritual bypassing, rejection of the human experience. Gate 25 is the heart of innocence, the unconditional acceptance of life as it is, without judgment or agenda. As part of the individual knowing circuit, its energy radiates pure spirit, reminding humanity of its divine essence beyond form. This gate represents the love that arises naturally when identity aligns with truth, unbound by the personal stories of success or failure. It is not sentimental. It is the fierce compassion that remains steady through chaos. Gate 25 loves simply because it is love, untouched by the fluctuations of emotion or circumstance. When embodied consciously, this gate expresses forgiveness, openness, and equanimity. It sees through the roles people play and welcomes all experience as sacred. Yet in the not-self, innocence becomes naivety or moral pride. One may repress pain to stay pure, judge others as unspiritual, or withdraw from the messiness of being human. This distortion often shows up as spiritual detachment, trying to transcend life rather than live it fully. Others may confuse compassion with self-denial, giving endlessly without honoring personal boundaries. The work with Gate 25 is to embody love that includes everything, especially the imperfect. Notice when you rise above instead of opening within. True innocence is not ignorance or purity. It's the fearless acceptance of all that exists. Practice returning to the heart before reacting. From this center, love flows effortlessly, embracing life's diversity as one unified field. Gate 17. The opinions. Following. Location, Ajna Center. Channel 1762, the channel of acceptance. Circuit, collective understanding circuit, logic process. Theme, the gate of opinions, the logical structuring of ideas for the collective. Not self-distortion, arrogance, defensiveness, dogmatic thinking, intellectual superiority, over-explaining to prove correctness. Gate 17 is the mind's architect, the capacity to organize thought into coherent opinion that can guide collective progress. Operating within the collective understanding circuit, it translates patterns into frameworks, helping others make sense of experience. This is not about personal truth, but logical possibility. Hypotheses tested through evidence and discussion. When expressed clearly and invited, Gate 17 contributes refined insight that advances understanding across systems, sciences, and society. When functioning in its higher potential, this gate offers perspective without attachment. It recognizes that opinions are mental blueprints, not fixed truths. In the not-self, however, logic hardens into dogma. One clings to being right, correcting others compulsively, or dominating conversations with uninvited analysis. The mind becomes trapped in constant evaluation, categorizing everything as correct or incorrect. This rigidity can alienate others and create anxiety about being wrong, cutting off genuine curiosity. The work with Gate 17 is to offer clarity, not control. Notice when the urge to prove replaces the desire to understand. Opinions serve evolution only when shared humbly and tested in collaboration. Practice stating your views as possibilities rather than absolutes. When logic is free from ego, your insight becomes a stabilizing force for collective growth and a bridge between reason and open-mindedness. Gate 21. The hunter or huntress. Biting through. Location, Ego Center. Channel 2145, the channel of money. Circuit, Tribal Ego Circuit, defense process. Theme, the gate of control, the drive to manage resources for the tribe's stability. Not self-distortion, micromanagement, control through fear, overwork, possessiveness, resistance to sharing power. Gate 21 is the archetype of authority, the instinct to manage, direct, and secure resources for the tribe's survival. As part of the tribal circuit, it ensures order through responsible leadership and protection of communal assets. This gate governs how energy, money, and effort are allocated to sustain the group. When expressed consciously, it embodies stewardship, leading through integrity, fairness, and pragmatic strength that earns trust and respect. In its exalted form, Gate 21 understands that true control arises from self-mastery. It organizes from clarity, not domination. In the not-self, fear of losing control drives compulsive oversight and tension. The individual may micromanage others, hoard resources, or equate authority with worth. This distortion often stems from insecurity about being supported. leading to burnout and strained relationships. At work, it can appear as needing to do everything oneself or distrusting others' competence. Integration with Gate 21 involves surrendering control to mutual trust. Notice where you grip rather than guide. Leadership here means managing from the heart, not fear. Delegating with confidence and valuing interdependence. Practice releasing the need to enforce and instead model consistency and respect. True authority protects by empowering others, ensuring the tribe thrives in shared strength. Gate 51, the arousing or shock. Location, ego heart center. Channel, 2551, the channel of initiation. Circuit, individual knowing circuit, centering process. Theme, the gate of shock, awakening through challenge and initiation. Not self-distortion, seeking crises, competitiveness for significance, spiritual superiority, reckless provocation, addiction to adrenaline. Gate 51 carries the energy of awakening through disruption, the electric pulse that shocks awareness into higher consciousness. Within the individual knowing stream, it catalyzes transformation through experiences that pierce complacency. This gate embodies the archetype of the initiator, whose trials break open the heart to spirit. Its frequency is unpredictable, demanding courage and faith. The shock itself is not punishment. It is life's way of reminding us who we truly are beyond fear. When aligned, Gate 51 meets challenge with boldness and grace. It moves first, inspiring others to rise into their own courage. Its leadership comes from authenticity, not aggression. In shadow, the not-self seeks shock for validation, courting chaos to prove strength or superiority. One may provoke others needlessly, compete to be the first, or thrive on crisis to feel alive. These behaviors exhaust the body and isolate the heart, turning awakening into adrenaline. To integrate Gate 51, approach shock as sacred initiation. When life shakes you, pause and feel the tremor fully. Ask what illusion is being broken. True initiation comes not from daring others, but from daring yourself to stay open in the unknown. Every disruption becomes grace when met with awareness. Awakening courage not through conquest, but surrender to life's electric truth. Gate 42, growth, increase. Location, sacral center. Channel, 4253, the channel of maturation. Circuit, collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of completion, the fuel to finish what has been begun. Not self-distortion, forcing closure, impatience, dragging out endings, fear of missing out, unfinished loops. Gate 42 is the pulse of completion within the collective sensing circuit. The energy that ensures life experiences reach full maturation. It is the fertile soil where cycles ripen into wisdom. As the counterpart to Gate 53's impulse to begin, Gate 42 carries the sacral power to sustain, commit, and complete. It's the energy that says, Stay with it until the fruit falls. Through its perseverance, humanity learns from the past and distills meaning from the journey. When distorted, this gate fears endings or emptiness. The not self rushes into new beginnings to avoid the discomfort of closure, or clings to what is over, trying to control the cycle. This shows up as burnout, frustration with projects that don't conclude neatly, or looping back into repetitive experiences for validation. The shadow confuses growth with accumulation. Doing more, taking on more, hoping something will finally feel finished. In relationships, it may manifest as prolonging what's no longer alive out of guilt or nostalgia. The practice of Gate 42 is to let cycles complete naturally. Completion is not an achievement, but a release. Notice where you force or resist endings. Allow the story to end when its energy is spent, trusting that space is fertile ground for the next cycle. Your wisdom matures when you honor the full arc of experience, neither rushing nor holding on, just letting life ripen in its own season. Gate 3. Ordering. Difficulty at the beginning. Location: Sacral Center. Channel 360. Channel of mutation. Circuit: the individual knowing circuit. Theme: the gate of innovation, bringing order out of chaos. Not self-distortion, forcing clarity, resisting uncertainty. Frustration with disorder, premature structuring. Gate 3 is the mutative seed of life, the creative chaos that births new forms. Located in the sacral center, it provides the energy to transform confusion into coherence through patient engagement with the unknown. As part of the individual circuit, its role is to initiate mutation, not to perfect the process. Every innovation begins here, in the fertile disorder that precedes structure. Gate 3 reminds us that creation is messy, uncertain, and alive. In shadow, the not-self cannot tolerate uncertainty. It pushes to get it right, forcing order too soon, or judging chaos as failure. This distortion manifests as micromanaging outcomes, rejecting new ideas before they're formed, or feeling paralyzed in confusion. The mind demands linear progress, where mutation moves in pulses and pauses. The result is frustration, self-doubt, and creative exhaustion. In teams or partnerships, this energy may appear as conflict over differing paces, or the urge to control the process instead of trusting its emergence. The practice of Gate 3 is to welcome disorder as creative potential. Chaos is not a problem, it's the precursor to mutation. Notice when you seek premature certainty or reject what feels unclear. Relax into the unknown, letting new patterns reveal themselves through time. True innovation arises when you honor confusion as part of life's reordering force, not something to eliminate. From this acceptance, form and flow find their natural harmony. Gate 27. Nourishment. Location: the sacral center. Channel 2750, the channel of preservation. Circuit: the tribal ego circuit, defense subcircuit. Theme: the gate of caring, sustaining life through responsible nourishment. Not self-distortion, overgiving, guilt-driven care, control through service, self-neglect. Gate 27 holds the instinct to nourish and sustain the tribe. As part of the defense circuit, it ensures that essential resources, food, energy, attention, are provided where they're needed. This gate is the archetype of the caretaker, the one who feeds life. Its highest expression is generosity rooted in alignment, not obligation. Through Gate 27, the sacral responds to what truly deserves its life force, ensuring that survival supports integrity, not dependency. When distorted, this caring energy becomes distorted into rescuing or enabling. The not-self gives from fear of rejection or guilt, taking responsibility for others' growth or comfort. This can show up as exhaustion, resentment, or subtle manipulation. Using help to feel worthy or needed. In relationships, it may become possessive, nourishing others to maintain control or approval. At work, it often appears as overcommitment and burnout, masked as dedication. The practice of Gate 27 is discerning nourishment. Care is sacred when it arises from response, not duty. Notice when you feed what drains you or deny your own needs to keep harmony. True nourishment sustains both giver and receiver. Honor your sacral response. It knows what deserves your life force. By caring from fullness rather than fear, you preserve vitality for yourself and the tribe. Gate 24, Rationalization, Returning. Location, Ajna Center. Channel 2461, the channel of awareness. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit. Theme, the gate of mental renewal. The cycle of returning to make sense of inspiration. Not self-distortion, mental looping, obsession, over-analysis, seeking logical certainty. Gate 24 is the mind's process of returning, circling back to make sense of the unknowable. As part of the individual knowing circuit, it works in harmony with Gate 61's inner mystery, trying to translate inspiration into understanding. This gate represents the natural rhythm of thought, retreating, reflecting, and eventually finding resolution. It's the pulse of contemplation, not control, where insight ripens quietly over time. In shadow, the not-self can't rest in not knowing. It forces answers, spins in mental loops, or obsesses over making sense of inspiration prematurely. This can manifest as insomnia, overthinking, or intellectual arrogance, confusing logic with truth. The pressure to figure it out drains creative energy, closing the channel to genuine insight. In conversation, it may appear as defensiveness or compulsive explaining to prove understanding. The practice of Gate 24 is allowing mental silence. Insight emerges through return, not effort. Notice when you try to control or justify what's arising. Instead, rest in the natural rhythm of contemplation, periods of thought followed by emptiness. Trust that clarity comes when the mind relaxes. True knowing is not forced. It returns in its own time, completing the cycle from mystery to understanding. Quarter 2. The quarter of civilization, purpose fulfilled through form. This quarter is where consciousness enters the world of matter and asks a simple, profound question. How do we make life work? If the first quarter sparks the idea, this one builds the container. It is the movement from inspiration into structure, from inner vision into something you can touch, hold, or rely on. Here, consciousness learns to collaborate with the material world rather than transcend it. You can imagine this quarter as a kind of workshop, part studio, part blueprint, part living construction site. It's where we shape resources, form relationships with tools and systems, and learn the rhythms that keep life sustainable. These gates teach us how to orient ourselves, how to create coherence, and how to contribute to something larger than ourselves without losing our uniqueness. They are the frequencies that turn raw potential into form that can actually support a life. You experience this quarter every time you organize your home so it feels like a refuge, every time you refine your craft, every time you make choices about work, resources, direction, or responsibility. It's present in the way you manage energy, in the structures you build to hold your creativity, and in the quiet intelligence that asks, what will actually work here? What can endure? This is not the glamour of creation. It's the devotion of shaping, tending, and maintaining. It's where individuality and practicality meet. But form also edges us towards commitment. Building something real means choosing what stays and what falls away. It means learning patience, trusting timing, and letting the material world respond to you instead of forcing it into shape. As we enter this quarter, we move into the gates that show how consciousness expresses itself through the mechanics of life, through direction, expression, contribution, refinement, and structural intelligence. Each gate is a facet of how we give form to who we are. Let them guide you gently into the lived, embodied side of the mandala, where ideas become expression, and expression becomes the architecture of a life. Gate 2. The receptive. Location, G Center. Channel, 214. Channel of the beat. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit. Integration sub-circuit. Theme, the gate of higher direction. Alignment to the magnetic flow of life. Not self-distortion. Forcing direction, self-doubt, disconnection from guidance, dependency on others for purpose. Gate 2 is the compass of the self, the receptive orientation point of the G center that aligns individuality to its natural path. As part of the individual circuit, it does not plan or strive. It receives direction through inner attunement. This gate represents pure receptivity, the feminine polarity that allows life to move through rather than be controlled. Here, identity aligns to the flow of the magnetic monopole, effortlessly guided toward correct environments and experiences. In distortion, Gate 2 loses trust in this natural current. The not self seeks control or external validation, demanding to know the way before moving. This manifests as indecision, chasing others' visions or overanalyzing life direction. The mind tries to steer what is meant to be felt and received. In relationships, this energy can appear as passivity or codependence, looking to others to define purpose or worth. At work, it may show up as pushing for results or forcing progress rather than waiting for resonance. The practice of Gate 2 is surrender to guidance. Direction arises through openness, not strategy. Notice where you grasp for certainty or seek to lead from mind. Instead, soften into presence and let the magnetic pull of life orient you. Your path unfolds when you trust your receptivity. Alignment is not achieved, it is allowed. Gate 23. Assimilation. Splitting apart. Location, throat center. Channel 2343, the channel of structuring. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit. Theme, the gate of explanation, the voice that transforms inner knowing into expression. Not self-distortion, over-explaining, defending insights, talking to be understood, fear of being seen as strange. Gate 23 is the voice of individuality, the power to translate abstract knowing into language. As part of the individual circuit, it serves as the bridge between inner mutation and collective understanding. This is the throat's impulse to articulate something never before expressed, structuring the insight received through Gate 43 into coherent form. Gate 23 gives mutation a voice, but timing determines whether it's heard or resisted. In shadow, the not-self speaks prematurely or suppresses its truth out of fear. The pressure to be understood creates tension, leading to awkward timing, defensive communication, or intellectual superiority. This energy may manifest as talking over others, explaining repeatedly, or withdrawing when misunderstood. In groups, it can polarize, either being dismissed as odd or idolized as a visionary. The mutation needs space, not approval. The practice of Gate 23 is to honor timing in communication. Your knowing is not for everyone, and it does not need to convince. Wait for resonance before sharing. Silence can be part of your transmission. Notice when you feel compelled to explain or prove. Trust that what is correct will land naturally. Authentic expression emerges effortlessly when the moment is right. Gate 8. Contribution. Holding it together. Location, throat center. Channel 8-1, the channel of inspiration. Circuit, individual knowing circuit. Theme, the gate of contribution, expressing unique style for the benefit of the collective. Not self-distortion, attention-seeking, performing for approval, withholding gifts, self-doubt in individuality. Gate 8 is the voice of creative contribution, the expression of individuality that enriches the collective. As part of the individual circuit, it doesn't seek to fit in, but to inspire others through authentic display. This is the throat's capacity to say, I can make a contribution, giving form to the creative pulse initiated by Gate 1. Its purpose is not to lead or please, but to model self-expression that naturally influences the group. In shadow, the not-self seeks recognition or validation. This can look like overbranding, dramatizing individuality to be noticed, or holding back gifts out of fear of rejection. The need to prove uniqueness often masks insecurity. In professional settings, this energy may show up as overperforming or adapting style to please authority. In relationships, it may oscillate between pride and invisibility, wanting to stand out but fearing exposure. The practice of Gate 8 is to express for the joy of creation, not approval. Contribution is an offering, not a performance. Notice when you've tailored your voice to please or withholding your gifts to stay safe. True individuality serves naturally when it is simply lived. Let your expression be spontaneous, authentic, and free. It's through your self-expression that the collective finds inspiration. Gate 20, the now, contemplation. Location, throat center. Channel, 2034, 2057, and 1020. The channels of charisma, channel of awareness, and the channel of awakening. Circuit, the integration network, individual knowing circuit. Theme, the gate of presence, pure awareness in the moment. Not self-distortion, impulsivity, anxious speech, performing mindfulness, chasing immediacy instead of being it. Gate 20 is the voice of the now, the pure expression of presence through action and speech. As part of the integration network, it embodies the synthesis of self, awareness, and power in real time. This gate transforms life into direct experience, speaking what is seen, felt, and known in the moment. When aligned, it radiates clarity and truth without agenda, becoming a mirror of consciousness itself. In distortion, the not-self tries to be present, rather than resting as presence. This appears as restless activity, nervous chatter, or impulsive reactions. The mind hijacks the moment, mistaking speed for authenticity. At work, this may look like speaking too soon, or acting without clarity. In relationships, it can manifest as interruption, control, or overexcitement that fractures connection. The result is exhaustion instead of embodiment. The practice of Gate 20 is to rest in awareness before expression. True presence requires no effort. It is already here. Notice when you rush to fill silence or prove aliveness through doing. Pause. Let awareness inform action rather than reaction. When speech and deed arise from stillness, your voice becomes the sound of the moment itself, authentic, alive, and awake. Gate 16, the enthusiast. Location, throat center. Channel, 4816, the channel of talent. Circuit, the collective understanding circuit. Theme, the gate of skill, enthusiasm as the fuel for mastery. Not self-distortion, performance anxiety, showing off, talking about talent instead of refining it, burnout from over-effort. Gate 16 is the spark of enthusiasm that gives voice to talent. It transforms potential, Gate 48, into practiced expression through repetition and refinement. As part of the collective understanding circuit, this gate thrives on pattern mastery, testing, improving, and sharing what works for the collective good. Its energy is rhythmic and contagious, inspiring others when aligned with authentic joy rather than approval seeking. Here, excitement meets dedication, turning repetition into artistry and skill into service. When operating consciously, Gate 16 brings vivacity, depth, and refinement to whatever it practices. It speaks and performs with clarity, inspiring confidence through grounded mastery. Its enthusiasm communicates collective progress, bridging technical knowledge with creative flair. In shadow, enthusiasm becomes a mask for insecurity, seeking validation through performance, chasing applause, or losing patience when mastery takes time. The not-self may quit too early, exaggerate talent, or over-explain to prove competence. At work or in creative projects, This distortion shows up as scattered energy, overpromising, or imitating others instead of developing one's authentic style. The work with Gate 16 is to embrace disciplined repetition. Mastery is not about being special, it's about refining patterns until expression becomes effortless. Notice when you rush to perform before you've embodied the practice. True enthusiasm is sustained, not flashy. Let your joy of skill speak naturally through you, inspiring others by the quiet rhythm of your devotion. Gate 35. Progress. Location, throat center. Channel, 3536, the channel of transitoriness. Circuit, collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of change, the hunger for new experiences. Not self-distortion, escapism, chasing novelty, dramatizing experiences, fear of boredom. Gate 35 is the restless storyteller of the collective sensing circuit. Driven by the hunger for progress through experience, it carries humanity's desire to explore what's new, to taste the world's variety and return with stories that teach. Through its connection with Gate 36, this energy learns emotional wisdom through the highs and lows of adventure. Progress here is not about speed, it's about transformation through lived experience. When operating consciously, Gate 35 embraces change as a natural rhythm of life. It shares experiences with maturity, distilling them into insights that move others forward. Its stories inspire collective understanding by giving meaning to the emotional journey of evolution. In shadow, it avoids stillness, jumping from one thing to the next to escape discomfort or emotional depth. The not-self may dramatize experience to feel alive, inflate achievements to gain attention, or grow despondent when excitement fades. In relationships or career, this distortion shows up as restlessness, over-promising, or creating crises to feel stimulated. The work with Gate 35 is to find fulfillment in the process, not the thrill. Every experience, joyful or painful, adds to your wisdom when integrated with awareness. Notice when you crave the next thing to escape the present. Progress is not about having more, it's about understanding more deeply. Let your stories ripen before you share, so your words carry the power of genuine evolution. Gate 45. Gathering together. Location, throat center. Channel, 4521, channel of the money line. Circuit, the tribal ego circuit. Theme, the gate of leadership, stewardship through resource sharing. Not self-distortion, control, possessiveness, false authority, using influence for validation. Gate 45 is the voice of the tribe, the natural authority that speaks for the community's well-being. It expresses through the throat center the role of the queen or king, gathering people and resources to sustain the collective. As part of the tribal ego circuit, this gate is grounded in material security and mutual support. True leadership here is stewardship, holding resources in trust for all, not personal power. When operating consciously, Gate 45 shares resources wisely and communicates with integrity. Its leadership uplifts others through clarity and generosity, ensuring fair exchange and collective prosperity. In shadow, leadership becomes control, hoarding, dominating, or seeking loyalty through fear or status. The not-self may manipulate others for validation, claim authority without contribution, or talk about abundance while feeling secretly insecure about loss. At work or in family systems, this distortion shows up as micromanagement, favoritism, or over-identification with one's title or possessions. The work with Gate 45 is to remember that true wealth is relational. Leadership is not ownership, it's service to the group's health. Notice when you speak to assert control rather than to unite. When you trust in mutual exchange, your voice naturally gathers others around shared purpose. Generosity becomes your power, and your authority arises not from what you hold, but from how you share. Gate 12. The cautious. Standstill. Location, throat center. Channel 1222, the channel of openness. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit. Theme, the gate of discrimination, the creative voice of emotional clarity. Not self-distortion, overexpression, mood-driven speech, emotional shutdown, performing instead of feeling. Gate 12 is the poised voice of individual knowing circuit, creative, romantic, and deeply emotional. It is the gate of caution before expression, waiting for the right emotional clarity to speak truth. Here, the throat becomes a vessel for artistry and intimacy, translating mood and feeling into words, music, or silence. This gate teaches the art of timing, knowing when expression will move others, and when silence preserves integrity. When operating consciously, Gate 12 speaks from emotional truth, inspiring authenticity and depth. Its voice carries power precisely because it is selective, waiting for resonance before revealing itself. In shadow, expression becomes reactive, blurting out feelings without clarity, performing for approval, or hiding one's heart out of fear of rejection. The not-self may manipulate tone to control others' reactions, or repress creativity to avoid vulnerability. In relationships, this distortion shows up as moodiness, passive withdrawal, or speaking too soon and regretting it later. The work with Gate 12 is to honor emotional timing. Silence is not suppression, it is the soil in which your truth matures. Notice when you feel pressured to express or to stay silent out of fear. Let your words emerge from genuine emotional coherence. When you speak from that place, your voice becomes art itself, an authentic vibration that awakens the hearts of others. Gate 15. The Gate of Extremes. Humility. Location, the G Center. Channel 15.5. Channel of rhythm. Circuit, the collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of extremes, the love of humanity and the acceptance of diversity. Not self-distortion, over-adaptation, moral superiority, excessive conformity, identity confusion. Gate 15 holds the love of humanity in all its variation. It represents the pulse of life's diversity, the embrace of difference, and the rhythm of natural extremes. As part of the collective sensing circuit, this gate moves with the abstract flow of experience, reflecting how identity harmonizes with the great human pattern. Those with Gate 15 often sense the collective's pulse and express tolerance as an embodied presence of love. The rhythm here is not mechanical. It is the rhythm of life itself, constantly expanding and contracting, seeking balance through acceptance. When expressed consciously, this gate moves fluidly between activity and stillness, inclusion and solitude, without judgment. It loves humanity without needing to fix or perfect it. But in the not-self, this same adaptability becomes distortion, over-adjusting to fit in, policing others' behavior, or adopting moral righteousness as a substitute for authentic acceptance. The person may swing between extremes, hyper-social engagement and complete withdrawal, believing they must earn belonging. The work of Gate 15 is to rest in your natural rhythm and release the pressure to normalize or prove virtue. Observe where you hide or perform goodness to be loved. True humility arises from embracing both your light and shadow without comparison. When you live your rhythm without agenda, you radiate inclusivity, anchoring humanity's love of diversity as an embodied frequency of peace. Gate 52, Keeping Still, the Mountain. Location, Root Center. Channel 952, the Channel of Concentration. Circuit, the Collective Logic Circuit, Understanding Process. Theme, the Gate of Stillness, the capacity to focus energy through inner restraint. Not self-distortion, stagnation, paralysis, avoidance, hyperactivity to escape silence. Gate 52 is the root of stillness, the grounded focus that allows the mind to concentrate. Within the collective logic circuit, it fuels attention toward patterns that serve the collective's progress. It is the mountain that stands unmoved, channeling restlessness into stability so that analysis and problem-solving can occur. This gate's energy does not push. It waits until there is something worthy of sustained attention. Its wisdom lies in patience and direction. In its high expression, Gate 52 offers a calm center in the storm, focused, observant, and steady. It provides others with a grounded field where chaos can be organized. But the not-self distorts this stillness into stagnation or anxiety. The person may freeze under pressure, confuse waiting with procrastination, or swing between intense activity and burnout. Others try to force focus, grasping at distractions or numbing discomfort through busyness. The practice of Gate 52 is to honor stillness as a living process, not a problem to fix. Notice when you avoid silence out of fear of uselessness. Anchor awareness in the breath, allowing focus to emerge naturally rather than through control. Your gift is to hold the mountain's presence, quiet, alert, and unwavering, so collective clarity can take root through your patient attention. Gate 39, Obstruction, Provocation. Location, Root Center. Channel 3955, the Channel of Emoting. Circuit, the Individual Knowing Circuit, Empowerment Process. Theme, the Gate of Provocation, the pressure to awaken spirit through emotional challenge. Not self-distortion, pushing buttons, emotional manipulation, withdrawal, bitterness. Gate 39 carries the pressure to provoke spirit, to awaken authenticity by stirring what lies dormant. As part of the individual knowing stream, its frequency is deeply catalytic. It challenges others to feel what is real, disrupting comfort so that emotional truth can surface. This gate's energy is not meant to please. It is designed to disturb complacency in service of aliveness. In its conscious expression, Gate 39 embodies a sacred tension. It provokes through presence, not aggression. Its humor, truth, and emotional depth inspire others to reconnect with what truly moves them. Yet in the not-self, this pressure becomes misdirected, provoking for attention, pushing others to react, or retreating into isolation when misunderstood. The person may alternate between confrontation and avoidance, unconsciously stirring conflict instead of awakening consciousness. The work of Gate 39 is to embrace provocation as an art form grounded in love. Before speaking or acting, feel whether your impulse arises from connection or defense. Can you provoke openness rather than resistance? When your energy serves truth instead of ego, you become a spark that reignites spirit in others. True empowerment here is not in control, but in the courage to be authentically alive. Gate 53. Development. Beginnings. Location, the root center. Channel, 5342, the channel of maturation. Circuit, the collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of beginnings, the fuel to initiate cycles of experience. Not self-distortion, impulsiveness, unfinished projects, fear of completion, chronic busyness. Gate 53 provides the initiating spark of the abstract experiential cycle. It carries the pressure to begin, the restless urge to set life in motion so that growth and maturation can occur. As part of the collective sensing stream, this gate understands that experience unfolds in stories, each with a beginning, middle, and end. Its drive is not just to start something, but to evolve through the journey of becoming. When expressed consciously, Gate 53 initiates projects, relationships, and experiences with natural timing, trusting that each beginning will find its own completion through Gate 42. Its energy is optimistic, adventurous, and open to life's unfolding. In distortion, however, this gate becomes addicted to starting, constantly seeking new stimulation to escape boredom or emotional discomfort. The person may scatter energy across too many ventures, or abandon processes before they mature. The practice for Gate 53 is to cultivate patience with the life cycles you initiate. Notice the impulse to rush ahead or abandon something once it loses novelty. Each cycle matures in its own time. Your gift is to begin consciously, anchoring your enthusiasm in awareness. When you trust natural rhythm of evolution, your beginnings become sacred openings for collective experience to bloom and complete. Gate 62. The preponderance of the small. Detail. Location, the throat center. Channel 1762, the channel of acceptance. Circuit, the collective logic circuit, understanding process. Theme, the gate of precision, the ability to organize, name, and articulate patterns clearly. Not self-distortion, overthinking, nitpicking, compulsive correctness, data hoarding, anxious verbosity. Gate 62 gives form to logic. It is the voice that names what has been mentally organized through observation. Within the collective logic circuit, this gate translates abstract concepts into clear, repeatable language, allowing the collective to verify and share understanding. It is the power of detail, the mind's capacity to label and articulate what is seen so that patterns can be tested. Through this gate, thought becomes tangible and truth can be communicated with accuracy and structure. When operating consciously, Gate 62 expresses mental clarity with humility. It values precision without attachment and uses facts to serve comprehension, not control. But in distortion, this gate overemphasizes correctness, getting lost in endless detail or intellectual superiority. The not-self may speak excessively, analyze without context, or weaponize logic to appear smart and safe. This mental compulsion often hides insecurity, a fear that being wrong equals being unworthy. In conversation, it can sound rigid, dismissive, or overly technical, losing connection to meaning. The work with Gate 62 is to trust that clarity arises from grounded awareness, not from control. Notice when you rush to explain, justify, or fix through words. Let silence precede speech so insight can settle. Your true gift is to articulate with precision and warmth, naming patterns so the collective can see more clearly, without diminishing the mystery that language can never fully capture. Gate 56, The Wanderer. Stimulation. Location, Throat Center. Channel 1156, the channel of curiosity. Circuit, the collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of storytelling, the voice that shares meaning through experience. Not self-distortion, rambling, exaggeration, attention-seeking, entertainment addiction, shallow enthusiasm. Gate 56 is the voice of the storyteller, the energy that turns experience into narrative. As part of the collective sensing circuit, this gate gives emotional color to the abstract stream, sharing what has been felt rather than proven. It weaves memory and imagination into stories that connect people through shared meaning. The gift of Gate 56 is to stimulate awareness and curiosity, offering experiences as tales that enrich collective perspective. In its conscious form, this gate knows that stories are living bridges between experience and wisdom. It speaks with authenticity, allowing others to feel seen through the resonance of shared humanity. In the not-self, however, it becomes addicted to stimulation, talking to fill silence, dramatizing for attention, or using stories to escape deeper feeling. The person may overshare, change narratives to please the audience, or chase novelty to avoid stillness. The truth becomes secondary to performance. The practice of Gate 56 is to speak from presence, not performance. Notice when your stories seek validation instead of connection. Allow experience to settle before sharing, so meaning can mature naturally. When you honor the emotional essence behind the words, your storytelling becomes medicine, awakening collective understanding rather than distracting from it. Gate 31, Influence, Leadership. Location, Throat Center. Channel 731, the channel of the Alpha. Circuit, the collective logic circuit, understanding process. Theme, the gate of influence, leadership through articulate and democratic expression. Not self-distortion, controlling speech, attention-seeking authority, intellectual dominance, fear of being ignored. Gate 31 is the logical voice of leadership, the capacity to influence others through reasoned and inclusive communication. Operating within the collective logic circuit, this gate speaks on behalf of the group, articulating patterns that can guide collective direction. It represents the democratic principle, leadership that emerges through recognition, not force. True influence here is earned by alignment with the collective's trust and clarity. When expressed consciously, Gate 31 communicates with humility, clarity, and responsibility. It offers reasoned guidance and listens as much as it speaks. In the not-self, however, it craves validation and control, speaking over others, asserting expertise, or performing leadership before it has been invited. The person may fear insignificance and compensate by trying to prove authority through words or polished logic. This distortion often leads to disconnection and distrust. The integration practice for Gate 31 is to remember that true influence is a response, not a pursuit. Notice where you speak to command rather than to serve. Let leadership arise from collective recognition, grounded in logic that benefits all. When your words come from alignment, not ego, your voice naturally shapes direction, clear, fair, and trusted. Gate 33, Retreat, Privacy. Location, Throat Center. Channel 1333, the channel of the prodigal. Circuit, the collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of reflection, the capacity to withdraw and distill wisdom from experience. Not self-distortion, avoidance, secrecy, emotional shutdown, shame-based retreat, living in the past. Gate 33 is the storyteller's pause, the gate of retreat that transforms memory into wisdom. As part of the collective sensing circuit, it concludes the experiential cycle initiated by Gate 13. Here, the abstract stream gathers what has been lived, filtering emotional experience into reflection. This gate holds the power of closure, the ability to look back, learn, and prepare for a new cycle through silence and solitude. When expressed consciously, Gate 33 values privacy as sacred integration. It withdraws, not to escape, but to honor experience before sharing it anew. The not-self, however, retreats from life out of fear, hiding mistakes, suppressing emotion, or clinging to nostalgia. The person may appear detached or secretive, unable to let go of the past or forgive themselves for what has already passed. This distortion prevents true renewal. The work of Gate 33 is to embrace solitude as fertile space, not punishment. Notice when withdrawal is driven by shame or fatigue rather than reflection. Allow quiet time to reveal what experience has taught you. When you rest in silence without judgment, memory ripens into wisdom, and your next story, when spoken, carries the grace of truth distilled through time. Quarter 3, the quarter of duality, purpose fulfilled through bonding. If the first half of the mandala initiates awareness and brings it into form, this quarter reveals why we're here at all, to meet the other. The quarter of duality is the choreography of relationship, the way consciousness tests, adjusts, adapts, commits, protects, collaborates, and ultimately finds itself through interaction. Here, purpose is not fulfilled in isolation. It depends on the exchange of energy between people, the spark created when two distinct trajectories cross. If this quarter had a single image, it would be a bridge suspended between two shores, strong enough to hold weight, flexible enough to sway with changing conditions, and meaningful only because it connects what would otherwise remain separate. The gates in this quarter explore every aspect of that bridge, how we influence and follow, how we attract and respond, how we form bonds of love, loyalty, work, and tribe. They examine the agreements, spoken and unspoken, that make relationships possible. As a unified field, these gates move through the mechanics of partnership and interdependence, leadership and followership, seduction and defense, trust and discernment, invitation and refusal. They show us that bonding is never static. It's a living negotiation where identity meets impact. Through the other, we learn who we are, what we stand for, and where our boundaries and vulnerabilities lie. You can feel this quarter's energy anytime you navigate the delicate dance of us. the pull toward closeness, the fear of losing yourself, the instinct to protect what matters, or the intuitive sense of whether someone is safe to join. This is the part of you that knows relationships require both openness and discernment, both surrender and self-respect. As you enter the gates of this quarter, let yourself notice the subtle ways you bond and recoil, lead and follow, trust and test. These frequencies reveal the truth of how we meet each other and who we become in the meeting. Gate 7. The role of the self in interaction. The Army. Location, G Center. Channel 731. Channel of the Alpha. Circuit, Collective Logic Circuit. Understanding Process. Theme, the Gate of Leadership. The Direction of Collective Purpose. Not self-distortion. Dominating others. Controlling outcomes. Seeking validation through power. Performing authority without recognition. Gate 7 is the guide of the collective logic circuit, the capacity to sense the correct direction for the group. It is the archetype of the democratic leader, one who leads not through force but through the wisdom of patterns and systems that serve all. This gate governs how identity expresses itself in relation to the collective, holding the potential for influence when aligned with correct recognition. Its essence is stewardship, leadership that emerges through service and reasoned vision. When expressed consciously, Gate 7 leads by embodying the collective's trust. It uses logical insight to move groups towards efficiency, fairness, and sustainability. But in distortion, this gate seeks control rather than alignment, forcing opinions, assuming leadership uninvited, or manipulating systems to maintain power. The not-self may fear insignificance, using authority to mask insecurity. This often results in burnout, resentment, or rebellion from those being led, as true influence cannot be imposed. The work of Gate 7 is to surrender control and let leadership emerge naturally through recognition. Notice when you speak for others instead of with them. Leadership, grounded in the collective logic circuit, is about guiding patterns, not people. Your true gift lies in aligning direction with shared understanding, using clarity and service, not dominance, to help the collective find its way. Gate 4. Youthful Folly. Formalization. Location, Ajna Center. Channel 63-4, the channel of logic. Circuit, Collective Logic Circuit, Understanding Process. Theme, the Gate of Mental Solutions, the potential to find answers through logical reasoning. Not self-distortion, forcing answers, anxious problem-solving, defensive reasoning, intellectual superiority. Gate 4 is the mental engine of the collective logic circuit, the place where questions find form. It seeks reliable answers through analysis, offering mental stability to the collective by finding patterns that make sense of uncertainty. This gate gives the mind a structure for processing doubt, turning confusion into understanding. Its gift lies in providing consistent, testable logic that can be shared for the benefit of all. When expressed consciously, Gate 4 waits for the right question before offering answers. It knows that logic matures through time and repetition, not through hassle, not through haste. The not-self, however, rushes to conclusions, offering unsolicited advice, defending ideas to avoid feeling wrong, or overanalyzing problems to feel safe. It can become caught in mental loops, obsessing over perfection or control. Such defensiveness isolates rather than clarifies, creating argument instead of insight. The work of Gate 4 is to relax into mental uncertainty. Notice when you feel compelled to fix or define what is not yet ready to be known. True logic emerges from patience and humility. Your gift is to articulate clarity when invited, not to force certainty where mystery still wants to unfold. Gate 29, the abysmal, perseverance. Location, sacral center. Channel 2946, the channel of discovery. Circuit, collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of devotion, the power of commitment to experience. Not self-distortion, overcommitting, saying yes to please, staying stuck in draining situations, guilt-based endurance. Gate 29 fuels the collective sensing circuit with devotion, the capacity to say a wholehearted yes to life. This is the energy that commits to experience for its own sake, trusting that meaning will emerge through the journey. Through the channel of discovery, it propels the collective into new realms of experience, turning uncertainty into adventure. It embodies the truth that wisdom is earned through living, not knowing. When expressed consciously, Gate 29 is faithful to inner truth. It recognizes that commitment is sacred when rooted in resonance. In the not-self, this gate overextends itself, saying yes out of guilt, obligation, or fear of missing out. The person may stay in jobs, relationships, or projects that have lost vitality, confusing endurance with loyalty. This drains life force and breeds resentment, blocking the natural flow of discovery. The work of Gate 29 is to honor the integrity of your yes. Notice where your commitment comes from fear rather than truth. The collective sensing circuit teaches that experience is the path to wisdom. When you engage with authenticity, every journey, even the difficult one, serves collective growth. Gate 59, dispersion, intimacy. Location, sacral center. Channel 59-6, the channel of mating. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit, empowerment process. Theme, the gate of sexual and emotional intimacy, the drive to break barriers and create closeness. Not self-distortion, manipulative seduction, emotional fusion, fear of rejection, using intimacy to control or prove worth. Gate 59 carries the raw frequency of intimacy, the urge to dissolve barriers between self and other. Operating within the individual knowing circuit, it empowers mutation through deep, embodied connection. This is the energy that creates bonds strong enough to generate life, biologically, emotionally, and spiritually. Its power is deeply personal, yet its impact on humanity is evolutionary, driving the renewal of life and individuality through merging. When expressed consciously, Gate 59 opens with discernment, allowing intimacy that nourishes transformation. It understands that vulnerability is strength when chosen freely. The not-self, however, uses this energy to manipulate closeness, forcing connection, sexualizing emotion, or using physical affection to avoid aloneness. The person may merge too quickly, lose boundaries, or fear being unwanted, turning the sacred into strategy. The work of Gate 59 is to meet intimacy with awareness. Notice when your openness seeks to possess or prove rather than connect. True intimacy dissolves barriers through authenticity, not need. When you embody presence and self-trust, your openness becomes magnetic, inviting union that empowers both self and other in the evolutionary dance of love. Gate 40, aloneness, deliverance. Location, heart center. Channel 4037, the channel of community. Circuit, the tribal ego circuit, defense process. Theme, the gate of restoration, the willpower to work and rest in balanced rhythm. Not self-distortion, overgiving, burnout, guilt, transactional love, resentment toward dependence. Gate 40 is the pulse of the tribe that sustains communal life through individual labor. It governs the will to work for others and the corresponding need for solitude and renewal. Within the tribal circuit, this gate is about integrity, doing one's part and expecting fairness in return. True deliverance comes from recognizing when to give and when to retreat. Its power is not constant. It waxes and wanes with the heart's energy, calling for deep rest after genuine effort. In the shadow, Gate 40 forgets its right to be alone. The not-self pushes through exhaustion to prove worth, overextends in service, or withholds love when feeling unappreciated. This distortion often leads to bitterness, guilt, or isolation disguised as independence. The ego begins to equate work with love and giving with control, forgetting that true belonging is built on mutual respect, not sacrifice. The integration lies in honoring your own rhythm of contribution and rest. Notice when you give to earn approval rather than from genuine willingness. Take solitude without apology. Rest is not withdrawal. It's the restoration that allows your heart to offer itself cleanly again. When balanced, Gate 40 teaches the tribe the sacred economy of willpower, that true deliverance arises when love, work, and rest are aligned with inner truth. Gate 64, confusion, before completion. Location, head center. Channel 6447, the channel of abstraction. Circuit, the collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of imaginative chaos, the pressure to make sense of the past. Not self-distortion, mental overwhelm, premature conclusions, romanticizing confusion, spiritual bypassing. Gate 64 is the raw pressure of the abstract mind seeking meaning in experience. It sits at the end of the mandala, where all past images swirl in confusion before clarity dawns. As part of the collective sensing circuit, it holds the cinematic reel of life's stories, pressing us to organize memory into wisdom. Confusion is not a mistake. It is the fertile field of imagery from which insight eventually blooms through Gate 47. In distortion, the not-self mind scrambles to solve confusion too quickly, forcing narratives that feel safe but shallow. It replays memories obsessively, turning reflection into mental noise. There can be a false comfort in perpetual analysis or spiritual storytelling, where the mind builds meaning to escape uncertainty. This gate's beauty lies precisely in what the mind resists, the suspended state before knowing. The practice with Gate 64 is to stay present with confusion without collapsing into it. Let images pass like clouds rather than grasping for conclusions. When the pressure to understand arises, breathe into the crown and allow the movie to unfold. Insight emerges naturally when the past completes itself in awareness. True clarity is not achieved. It arrives in its own time after the confusion has been fully honored. Gate 47. Realization, oppression. Location, Ajna Center. Channel, 6447, the channel of abstraction. Circuit, the collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of mental compression, transforming confusion into meaning. Not self-distortion, self-judgment, mental pressure, pessimism, fixation on mistakes. Gate 47 translates the chaotic imagery of Gate 64 into coherent insight. It is where the abstract stream crystallizes experience into understanding, forming the mental structure that allows collective learning. Yet its process is not comfortable. The mind here feels squeezed, oppressed by the weight of unresolved experiences. True realization happens only when we stop forcing understanding and allow the synthesis to ripen naturally. In its shadow, this gate becomes a prison of self-criticism. The not-self judges itself for not knowing, interprets confusion as failure, and labors to extract meaning through sheer mental force. This can manifest as rumination, regret, or over-analysis of the past. The pressure to figure it out replaces openness with anxiety. The more we think, the tighter the mind contracts. The practice for Gate 47 is surrendering to compression without resistance. When you feel the squeeze of thought, recognize it as gestation rather than failure. Let meaning emerge from stillness, not striving. Journaling, meditation, or silent observation can help the mind relax its grip. In truth, realization is not constructed, it is revealed. Wisdom dawns when the mind stops trying to understand and simply allows understanding to happen. Gate 6. The Peacemaker. Conflict. Location, Solar Plexus Center. Channel, 659, the channel of mating. Circuit, Individual Knowing Circuit. Integration through intimacy. Theme, the gate of emotional boundaries, the friction that tests and refines intimacy. Not self-distortion, avoiding confrontation, emotional volatility, seduction as control, retreating to maintain false peace. Gate 6 is the emotional gatekeeper of intimacy, the threshold where the energy of connection meets resistance and transformation. As part of the individual knowing circuit, its friction catalyzes mutation through emotional truth. This gate defines who may enter one's emotional field and under what conditions. It governs the pulse of attraction and repulsion that regulates closeness, ensuring that intimacy evolves from authentic resonance rather than need or fear. Friction here is not a flaw. It is the testing ground for transparency and trust. In shadow, Gate 6 resists the discomfort that intimacy brings. The not-self either suppresses emotion to keep the peace or unleashes volatility to prove power. It may seduce, manipulate, or withdraw to avoid vulnerability, mistaking control for safety. Emotional storms erupt when the boundary between self and other blurs. When empathy becomes enmeshment, or honesty becomes aggression. In relationships, this can appear as emotional shutdowns, cycles of reconciliation and distance, or using conflict to maintain attention rather than clarity. The work with Gate 6 is to stay present through emotional friction without collapsing into defense or escape. Conflict is sacred when met with awareness. It reveals where truth is seeking to enter. Notice when your instinct is to close off, appease, or push away. Instead, breathe and remain in contact. Let emotion move through without forcing resolution. Through conscious friction, Gate 6 transforms raw emotion into intimacy that is clean, alive, and deeply truthful. Gate 46, the determined, pushing upward. Location, the G center. Channel, 4629, channel of discovery. Circuit, collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of embodied love, the joy of being alive in the moment. Not self-distortion, forcing experience, seeking purpose through achievement, spiritual bypassing, body disconnection. Gate 46 celebrates life through the body, the sacred temple where consciousness experiences form. As part of the collective sensing stream, it grounds the abstract process of experience into physical presence, reminding us that evolution unfolds through embodiment, not escape. This is the love of incarnation, the willingness to fully inhabit time and space with grace. It doesn't chase destiny, it meets it through surrender to the moment. True luck, in this gate, is not random, but born from alignment, being in the right place at the right time because you are fully here. In shadow, the not-self treats the body as an obstacle or a means to prove worthiness. It overexerts to find purpose or get somewhere, bypassing the raw beauty of physical experience. This distortion shows up as overworking, ignoring fatigue, chasing spiritual highs, or rejecting the body's natural rhythms. We forget that destiny unfolds through embodiment, not mental striving. When disconnected from the body, we lose access to the synchronistic flow this gate brings. The practice with Gate 46 is simple yet profound. Return to presence through the body. Feel your feet on the ground, the breath in your chest, the pulse of aliveness in your skin. Notice how life moves through you when you stop reaching for it. The gift of this gate is grace, entering the current of destiny by saying yes to being here, now, in form. Gate 18, the corrector. Work on what has been spoiled. Location, spleen center. Channel 1858, the channel of judgment. Circuit, the collective understanding circuit, logic process. Theme, the gate of refinement, the instinct to improve and perfect patterns. Not self-distortion, chronic criticism, perfectionism, judgmental control, obsessive fixing. Gate 18 is the discerning eye of the collective, attuned to what can be improved for the well-being of all. As part of the understanding circuit, its gift is correction, seeing flaws in systems, habits, and methods that prevent stability and efficiency. It holds the intuitive pulse to refine life. not from personal superiority, but from devotion to collective betterment. This gate understands that patterns must be questioned and improved for evolution to continue. In shadow, this same clarity becomes condemnation. The not-self seeks validation through pointing out faults, criticizing others to prove intelligence or moral high ground. It nitpicks, controls, or fixes to feel safe. In relationships, this distortion manifests as constant disapproval, conditional love, or the inability to rest until everything feels perfect. The energy turns sour when it loses compassion and becomes self-righteous. The integration with Gate 18 is to practice compassionate discernment. Correction without love wounds. Refinement with presence heals. Notice when your drive to fix comes from fear rather than service. True improvement arises naturally when love meets awareness. Use your insight to uplift, not to diminish. The gift of Gate 18 is evolutionary refinement, seeing what can be improved without condemning what already is. Gate 48, the well, the depths. Location, spleen center. Channel, 4816, the channel of talent. Circuit, the collective understanding circuit, logic process. Theme, the gate of depth, the resource of collective mastery. Not self-distortion, fear of inadequacy, information hoarding, overanalysis, withholding insight. Gate 48 holds the deep well of wisdom from which collective solutions arise. As part of the understanding circuit, it brings instinctive knowing that matures through repetition and application. This gate understands that true mastery is not instant. It ripens through time, practice, and patience. Its natural depth can make it appear as a quiet reservoir, waiting until the right moment to offer its insights. When aligned, Gate 48 gives practical wisdom that elevates systems and strengthens foundations. In shadow, this well becomes stagnant. The not-self doubts its adequacy and overcompensates through endless study, data gathering, or comparing knowledge with others. It withholds valuable insight out of fear of being wrong or incomplete. This can appear as self-sabotage, procrastination, or analysis paralysis. The energy collapses under the weight of its own expectations, mistaking depth for perfectionism. The work with Gate 48 is to trust your inherent wisdom and allow it to flow. You are already deep enough. Notice when fear of inadequacy makes you hide your gifts or delay sharing them. Offer what you know with humility, not certainty. True depth reveals itself through participation, not perfection. Your wisdom becomes useful only when it's allowed to nourish the collective well. Gate 57, the intuitive, the gentle. Location, spleen center. Channel 5710, the channel of perfected form. Also connects to 5720 and 5734. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit, empowerment process. Theme, the gate of intuitive clarity, hearing truth in the now. Not self-distortion, anxiety, overanalysis, mistrusting intuition, acting from fear instead of awareness. Gate 57 is the quiet whisper of intuition. the soft, moment-to-moment awareness that cuts through confusion and reveals truth in real time. As part of the individual knowing circuit, it is deeply acoustic and attuned to frequency, detecting what is healthy, safe, or aligned through subtle resonance. This is the gate of survival awareness, operating in the now. When functioning correctly, it doesn't explain, it knows. Its clarity arises spontaneously, like the sound of a bell in silence. Gate 57's intelligence protects the body and guides life through instinctive timing, helping the individual remain empowered and alert within an ever-changing world. In shadow, the not-self tries to control or justify this intuitive knowledge through logic, collapsing clarity into confusion. The fear of being wrong creates chronic anxiety and hesitation. Instead of acting from the quiet pulse of awareness, the person second-guesses, overthinks, or ignores the subtle voice altogether. This can appear as mistrusting one's gut feelings, seeking others' approval before making decisions, or mistaking fear for intuition. When disconnected from presence, Gate 57 becomes noisy, filled with worry, analysis, and defensive caution. The work with Gate 57 is learning to trust the silence. Intuition doesn't argue or explain, it simply speaks. Notice the difference between the mind's tension and the body's calm certainty. Practice listening inwardly until you can recognize the frequency of truth. Your clarity is not logical, it's alive. Honor the intuitive pulse as it comes and goes, allowing awareness to guide you effortlessly through the moment. True safety arises when you trust the knowing that never needs proof. Gate 32. The instinct for continuity. Duration. Location, spleen center. Channel 3254, the channel of transformation. Circuit, tribal ego circuit, support process. Theme, the gate of endurance, sensing what will last and what will fail. Not self-distortion, fear of failure, clinging to outdated commitments, equating worth with success, controlling change. Gate 32 carries the tribal instinct to preserve what is viable and discard what is not. As part of the tribal support circuit, it ensures the tribe's survival by sensing which ventures, traditions, or relationships will stand the test of time. This is not logical prediction, it is instinctive knowing. Gate 32 perceives potential in its early stages and feels a visceral pressure to align with what can endure. When honored, this awareness gives stability to transformation, helping growth unfold sustainably without losing connection to shared values and practical support. In shadow, fear distorts this clarity into anxiety about failure or rejection. The not-self may cling to familiar structures, refusing change even when vitality is gone. Others overcommit to unworkable situations to prove loyalty, exhausting themselves trying to make it last. This gate's wisdom decays when tied to personal ambition, judging success by outer validation instead of inner alignment. In business or relationships, this can appear as staying in dead partnerships, micromanaging others' progress, or obsessing over what could go wrong. The work with Gate 32 is trusting your instinctive recognition of timing and viability. Notice when fear of loss drives you to hold on rather than adapt. Endurance is not rigidity, it's discernment. True continuity arises when you support what is alive and release what no longer serves. Honor your intuitive sense of what can thrive, and let natural cycles of transformation guide the tribe toward lasting strength. Gate 50, the guardian, the cauldron. Location, spleen center. Channel 2750, the channel of preservation. Circuit, tribal ego circuit, defense process. Theme, the gate of values, the instinct to uphold responsibility and right conduct. Not self-distortion, over-responsibility, moral superiority, rescuing others, enforcing standards rigidly. Gate 50 holds the tribal laws, the instinctive code of right and wrong that ensures harmony and safety within community. As part of the defense circuit, it protects the tribe through nurturing structure and principled care. This gate feels a visceral responsibility for the well-being of others, guiding collective survival through moral integrity and consistent standards. When expressed clearly, it preserves trust and order while transmitting wisdom across generations. Its intelligence knows when to uphold rules and when compassion demands flexibility. In shadow, the not-self overextends this responsibility into judgment or control. Fear of chaos or guilt leads to rescuing behavior, taking on others' duties, imposing values, or punishing deviation. The person may feel morally superior or resentful when their care is not reciprocated. At work, this can appear as micromanaging, martyrdom, or rigid adherence to how things should be done. Instead of supporting the tribe, this becomes moral policing that suppresses growth and individuality. The work with Gate 50 is balancing care with trust. Your instinct to uphold order is sacred, but it must serve life, not fear. Notice when your sense of duty feels heavy or self-righteous. True protection nourishes freedom and self-responsibility. Lead through example, not enforcement. When values are lived rather than imposed, they naturally inspire integrity in others, preserving the tribe through living wisdom rather than control. Gate 28, the game player. Preponderance of the great. Location, spleen center. Channel 2838, channel of struggle. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit, empowerment process. Theme, the gate of purpose, the drive to find meaning through challenge. Not self-distortion, hopelessness, thrill-seeking, dramatizing struggle, avoiding purpose through distraction. Gate 28 embodies the existential question, what makes life worth living? As part of the individual knowing circuit, it brings depth and empowerment through struggle. This gate pushes consciousness toward purpose, sensing that true vitality comes from meeting life's tests with courage. Its awareness refines individuality through risk, endurance, and experimentation. When aligned, Gate 28 transforms fear of death into passionate engagement, revealing purpose not as a destination, but as the meaning discovered through the game itself. In shadow, the not-self resists this existential pressure, turning struggle into suffering. When disconnected from inner truth, one either dramatizes challenges for attention or avoids them through distraction and numbing. There may be a chronic sense of missing the point, searching endlessly for a passion to make life feel real. This can appear as taking reckless risks to feel alive, or resigning to meaninglessness when no clear purpose appears. The underlying fear is that life has no inherent value. The work with Gate 28 is embracing challenge as a teacher rather than a threat. Notice when you label struggle as failure or victimhood. Every difficulty reveals where authentic power seeks expression. Life's game is not about winning, it's about playing consciously. Meet resistance with curiosity and courage, and purpose will reveal itself in the living moment. Through your willingness to engage fully, you transform fear into strength and despair into meaning. Gate 44, The Alert, Coming to Meet. Location, the Spleen Center. Channel 4426, the channel of surrender. Circuit, Tribal Ego Circuit. Ego circuitry, business, support process. Theme, the gate of memory, recognizing patterns from the past to ensure future success. Not self-distortion, paranoia, manipulation, overcompensation, controlling others to feel secure. Gate 44 is the instinct of recognition, the ability to sense patterns and recall what worked or failed before. As part of the tribal ego circuit, it supports survival through remembering who can be trusted and what alliances will serve the tribe's continuity. This gate's awareness is deeply attuned to the frequency of others, reading body language, tone, and motive almost instantly. Its gift lies in alert recognition, using memory not to judge, but to discern what's healthy for long-term success and mutual benefit. In shadow, this memory turns defensive. The not-self grows hyper-vigilant, scanning for betrayal or replaying old mistakes. This can manifest as manipulating circumstances to stay in control, distrusting others' intentions, or overcompensating with charm or persuasion. The person may use past wounds to justify cynicism or exploit relationships strategically to feel safe. In business or intimacy, this distortion creates burnout through constant vigilance and mistrust. The work with Gate 44 is to honor recognition without fear. Your memory is a tool for discernment, not control. Notice when you project the past onto the present or use charm to secure advantage. Breathe into the instinctive alertness rather than reacting from it. Trust that awareness itself is protection. When recognition flows freely, it becomes guidance, connecting past lessons to present wisdom, empowering the tribe to move forward with integrity and trust. Quarter 4, the quarter of mutation, purpose fulfilled through transformation. This final quarter of the mandala is where consciousness turns toward the unknown, the place where old patterns dissolve, new potentials crack open, and the future enters through us whether we feel ready or not. Mutation is not tidy or predictable. It doesn't ask for permission. It moves like a voltage through the body, reshaping identity, expression, instinct, and desire. If the other quarters build, bond, and make sense of life, this one disrupts life just enough to let evolution happen. You can think of this quarter as a wildfire that clears only what no longer serves, making room for what has never existed before. These gates carry the pulse of individuality, unusual, creative, melancholic, inventive, and deeply personal. And yet their transformations ripple out to touch the whole. Here we experience the tension between stability and breakthrough, between who we've been and the self that's trying to emerge. In lived experience, this energy often feels like restlessness, melancholy, creative pressure, or a sudden knowing that something must change. It's the ache before inspiration, the discomfort before growth, the sensitivity that notices what no one else perceives. Sometimes it shows up as a creative impulse that refuses to be ignored. Other times it feels like the quiet collapse of an old identity, making space for a deeper truth. Mutation rarely arrives on our preferred timeline, but when it comes, it brings authenticity, renewal, and a more honest way of being. As you move through the gates of this quarter, notice the parts of you that are already transforming, perhaps softly, perhaps dramatically. Listen for what wants to be born through you rather than from effort or willpower. This is the territory of the new, the unexpected, the deeply personal. Let's step into these gates now, one by one, and feel how consciousness evolves through the pulse of mutation. Gate 1. The Creator. Location G Center. Channel 1-8, the channel of inspiration. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit, empowerment process. Theme, the gate of creative self-expression, the drive to manifest uniqueness. Not self-distortion, forcing inspiration, self-importance, creative paralysis, needing validation. Gate 1 is the raw pulse of creative energy, the primal expression of individuality emerging through form. Located in the G center, it represents the essential urge to create something original that reflects one's true identity. As part of the individual knowing circuit, this gate carries a deeply mutative frequency. Its art, speech, and movement catalyze transformation in others through authenticity. The energy of Gate 1 is not about productivity, but about resonance, the pure light of being expressed without agenda. It is the artist's gate, where creativity flows spontaneously when connected to inner truth. In shadow, the not-self struggles with comparison, pressure, and self-consciousness. When disconnected from inspiration, this gate may overcompensate, trying to prove its worth through effort or performance. One might oscillate between creative bursts and burnout, or suppress their originality to fit collective norms. There can be frustration in feeling unseen, leading to exaggerated displays of uniqueness, or withdrawing into despair. Creativity becomes distorted when driven by insecurity rather than inner necessity. The work with Gate 1 is to let expression arise naturally, without demand or justification. You cannot force inspiration. It moves through you when you are aligned. Practice creating without seeking reaction, approval, or result. Notice when you make art to be admired instead of to be real. True creativity is self-validating. It emerges from presence and disappears back into it. Trust that your authentic frequency is already the gift. Gate 43, the Insight, Breakthrough. Location, Ajna Center. Channel 4323, the channel of structuring. Circuit, individual knowing circuit, empowerment process. Theme, the gate of inner knowing, expressing unique insights that transform understanding. Not self-distortion, defensiveness, intellectual arrogance, fear of being misunderstood, withholding truth. Gate 43 holds the rare frequency of insight, the spontaneous breakthrough that reorganizes how humanity perceives reality. Rooted in the individual knowing circuit, it represents the mutation of mind, a sudden internal click that crystallizes chaos into form. This is not logical or collective reasoning. It's an individual revelation that demands correct timing and receptivity to be understood. When aligned, Gate 43 speaks truth with precision and impact, transforming confusion into clarity. In the shadow, fear and insecurity distort this gate's brilliance. The not self worries about sounding strange or being rejected, suppressing insights before they can be expressed. Or it pushes them out prematurely, lecturing, interrupting, or asserting superiority to prove its intelligence. The result is often misunderstanding and isolation. Others may sense the uniqueness but not the grounding, leaving the person feeling alienated or unheard. This gate's fear of rejection can harden into intellectual pride or self-protection. The work with Gate 43 is cultivating patience and trust and timing. Insight cannot be forced on others. It must ripen until the world is ready to receive it. Practice staying open, grounded, and available to your inner voice. When the moment comes, speak simply and directly from knowing, not from defense. The more you relax into your individuality, the more naturally your truth finds its listeners. Gate 14, the power skills, possession in great measure. Location, sacral center. Channel 14-2, channel of the beat. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit, empowerment process. Theme, the gate of resources, the power to channel energy toward individual direction. Not self-distortion, greed, misusing energy for others' goals, overworking, equating worth with productivity. Gate 14 is the power of sustainable wealth, the capacity to generate resources through doing what you love. As part of the individual knowing circuit, it aligns personal energy with life's greater rhythm. Expressing prosperity as a byproduct of authentic direction. When connected to Gate 2 in the G Center, this gate fuels the evolutionary flow of individuality, bringing creative energy into tangible form. It represents abundance born from alignment, not effort, but attunement to one's unique beat. In shadow, this energy becomes distorted by external demands and conditioning around success. The not-self may overwork to prove value, chase recognition, or attach worth to material outcomes. It can also scatter energy across others' visions, depleting vitality through misplaced loyalty. This creates frustration and resentment, as the sacral's life force is spent without fulfillment. The deeper fear here is of not having enough or not being enough. The work with Gate 14 is reclaiming ownership of your energy. Notice where your power is being spent. Does it serve your own direction or someone else's? True abundance comes from integrity of purpose. Align with what feels naturally enlivening and let the flow of energy generate prosperity in its own way. When you honor your inner rhythm, life supports you with exactly what's required for your creative path. Gate 34, power, the power of the great. Location, sacral center. Channel, 3420, the channel of charisma, also connects to 3410 and 3457. Circuit, individual knowing circuit, empowerment process. The gate of pure power, the capacity for self-empowered action in the now. Not self-distortion, aggression, overexertion, misuse of strength, acting without awareness. Gate 34 embodies the raw pulse of life itself, the motor of empowerment that expresses vitality through action. As part of the individual knowing circuit, it carries a frequency of pure aliveness that demands freedom to act in accordance with one's own truth. When aligned, this energy becomes magnetic and creative, influencing others simply by being fully engaged in the present moment. Power here is not dominance, it is authenticity in motion, the natural byproduct of responding correctly to life. In the shadow, the not-self either represses or misuses this force. When disconnected from awareness, power becomes reactive, pushy, or self-serving. The person may overextend, force outcomes, or mistake busyness for purpose. Alternatively, they may collapse in fear of their own strength, hiding their vitality to avoid judgment or conflict. This creates cycles of burnout and frustration, as natural empowerment becomes tangled with control. The work with Gate 34 is learning right use of strength. True power is not loud, it is aligned. Notice when you act to prove versus when you act from inner response. Pause before moving and feel whether the sacral says yes. Your energy is sacred. It exists to express truth, not to dominate or defend. When power flows through awareness, it becomes grace in motion, an unstoppable force guided by presence. Gate 9. Focus. The taming power of the small. Location, sacral center. Channel 952, the channel of concentration. Circuit, the collective logic circuit, understanding process. Theme, the gate of focus, the power to sustain attention and refine patterns. Not self-distortion, obsessive overthinking, procrastination, rigid control, distraction through busyness. Gate 9 holds the energy of focus, the ability to channel sacral power into a specific process or idea until understanding emerges. As part of the collective logic circuit, it supports pattern recognition and refinement, giving form to the mental clarity needed for progress. This gate transforms potential energy into disciplined concentration, applying effort where it truly matters. It's the capacity to persist and bring consistency to the work of improvement, whether through study, skill building, or problem solving. In shadow, the not-self loses balance between focus and flow. Energy becomes scattered, obsessively fixed on minor details, or chronically distracted by external noise. The mind may overanalyze instead of acting, or cling to plans for fear of losing control. This gate's brilliance can turn into rigidity, trying to perfect instead of participate. Overwork, micromanagement, and burnout are signs of misalignment as the sacral's natural rhythm becomes forced. The work with Gate 9 is remembering that focus follows engagement, not willpower. Notice where your attention flows naturally rather than where you think it should go. True concentration is joyful. It arises when the task resonates with your energy. Practice bringing your power gently to what's alive now and release the rest. When you trust your rhythm, persistence becomes effortless, and clarity arises through steady, present attention rather than control. Gate 5. Rhythm. Waiting. Location: the sacral center. Channel 515, channel of rhythm. Circuit: the collective logic circuit, understanding process. Theme: the gate of fixed patterns, aligning with the natural flow of life. Not self-distortion, forcing timing, impatience, burnout, rigidity in routine. Gate 5 governs rhythm, the internal clock that synchronizes human activity with natural cycles. As part of the collective logic circuit, it holds the energy of predictable order, establishing habits and structures that create stability in the collective. Through consistent patterns, it allows progress and trust in life's timing. This gate represents the dance between personal routine and universal flow, knowing that life unfolds through steady repetition, not control. In shadow, the not-self resists the natural pace of events. When disconnected from the sacral's intelligence, one may overschedule, rush, or collapse into lethargy. The fear of being off track drives compulsive productivity or self-judgment when things don't go on time. Conversely, the pattern may stagnate into rigidity, repeating routines out of safety rather than inspiration. These distortions arise when we identify with control rather than participation in rhythm itself. The work with Gate 5 is to surrender to timing. Observe when you force progress or resist pause. Your rhythm is not created, it's remembered. Trust that consistency emerges from listening to life's pulse, not from mechanical discipline. Practice being present with the tempo of your energy each day. When you align with your natural beat, timing becomes intuitive, and flow replaces struggle. Gate 26. Integrity, the taming power of the great. Location: heart center. Channel 2644, the channel of surrender. Circuit: tribal ego circuit, defense process. Theme: the gate of the ego's manipulation, the power to influence and market through integrity. Not self-distortion, dishonesty, exaggeration, self-promotion without value, manipulation for gain. Gate 26 is the gate of persuasion, the tribal energy that manages resources, messages, and deals. As part of the tribal ego circuit, it ensures the tribe's survival through effective communication, selling, and protection of its traditions. When operating in alignment, this gate wields charm and willpower in service of integrity, shaping messages that inspire trust and mutual benefit. It's the voice of the ego when it serves the whole, persuasive, skillful, and authentic. In shadow, the not-self uses this power for self-interest or control. Integrity is replaced by manipulation, as truth is bent to gain approval, status, or material reward. This can show up as overpromising, guilt-tripping, or using charisma to mask insecurity. When disconnected from heart alignment, the ego's salesmanship becomes deceitful or defensive. The deeper fear here is of losing respect or being powerless. The work with Gate 26 is reclaiming persuasion as a sacred responsibility. Notice when words aim to convince rather than serve. True influence arises naturally when your message reflects authentic experience. Practice honesty even when it risks rejection. When your ego aligns with the heart's truth, your words carry trust, integrity, not cleverness, is what truly sells. Gate 11. Ideas. Peace. Location, Ajna Center. Channel 1156, the channel of curiosity. Circuit, the collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the gate of ideas, translating experience into shared imagination. Not self-distortion, talking to fill silence, chasing inspiration for validation, hoarding concepts without application. Gate 11 is the flicker of light in the ajna, the place where the collective sensing stream turns memory and emotion into story. Here, abstract experience gains shape through imagery, philosophy, and symbolism. When grounded, this gate speaks with gentle wisdom, turning what has been felt into something that can be understood and shared. It doesn't need to convince. It invites reflection, helping humanity make sense of the journey by weaving meaning through imagination. In shadow, the not-self seeks stimulation rather than clarity. The mind races for novelty, collecting quotes, books, and perspectives without digestion. Ideas spill out as chatter or cleverness, interrupting others to prove insight. Over time, inspiration becomes noise, producing anxiety instead of illumination. This distortion hides a fear of emptiness, the belief that silence equals insignificance. But Gate 11's true power lies in the pause between ideas, where meaning matures. The work with Gate 11 is to let ideas breathe. Notice which thoughts return again and again. They're the ones ready to be shared. Allow the rest to pass like clouds across your inner sky. Practice speaking only when the image feels complete in your body. Your imagination is not a performance. It's a vessel for collective remembering. When you honor timing and silence, your words become gateways through which others rediscover their own insight. Gate 10. The behavior of the self. Treading. Location, G Center. Channel 1034, the channel of exploration. Circuit, individual knowing circuit. Theme, the gate of self-love, living one's uniqueness through behavior. Not self-distortion, performing authenticity, people-pleasing, self-rejection, moral superiority. Gate 10 is the choreography of authenticity, the way love of self is expressed through action. As part of the individual knowing stream, it is inherently mutative. It doesn't conform but demonstrates what it means to live as oneself unapologetically. When operating in its natural rhythm, this gate walks the fine line between self-expression and self-awareness, embodying love as behavior that inspires others to honor their own truth. It is not a moral code, but a living demonstration of integrity in motion. In the not-self, Gate 10 forgets that self-love begins within. We act for approval, overanalyze our actions, or rebel for rebellion's sake. The drive for correctness replaces the innocence of being. We may mimic confidence or judge others' behavior to affirm our own rightness. This distortion drains individuality into performance, creating anxiety about how we appear instead of peace in who we are. The work with Gate 10 is to move from self-consciousness to self-presence. Let the body lead. Notice how truth feels when you act on it. Walk, speak, and move as love itself without justification. You teach authenticity not by explaining it, but by embodying it. Each moment becomes a mirror. Are you treading your own path or someone else's? True self-love is silent, radical alignment. The freedom to act from your core, not your conditioning. Gate 58. The joyous. The well. Location, root center. Channel 5818. The channel of judgment. Circuit, collective understanding circuit, logic process. Theme, the gate of vitality, the pressure to perfect and improve life. Not self-distortion, chronic dissatisfaction, nitpicking, burnout through overcorrection. Gate 58 holds the spark of joyful pressure, the pulse to improve, refine, and elevate the human experience. As part of the collective logic stream, it fuels the ongoing evolution of systems, skills, and communities. When healthy, this pressure is playfully optimistic. It delights in solving problems, seeing how things could work better. The joy of Gate 58 is not in perfection itself, but in the aliveness that comes from engaged participation in life's unfolding. In shadow, this energy forgets joy and clings to pressure. The not self turns the impulse for improvement into a fixation on flaws, criticizing, micromanaging, or demanding results to feel in control. Joy collapses under comparison. We chase better until we lose our sense of play, confusing perfectionism with purpose. The result is exhaustion and disconnection from the very vitality we seek to create. The work with Gate 58 is to remember that correction is sacred only when rooted in delight. Let your curiosity lead your improvement, not your dissatisfaction. When you sense what could be better, pause and feel the joy of seeing potential itself. Your gift is not to fix the world by force, but to illuminate its next evolution through enthusiasm. Joy is the real generator of progress. Gate 38, the fighter, opposition. Location, root center. Channel, 3828, the channel of struggle. Circuit, the individual knowing circuit. Theme, the gate of purpose through challenge, the fight for meaning. Not self-distortion, picking battles for validation, resistance to cooperation, existential despair. Gate 38 is the warrior of meaning, the drive to stand for what gives life purpose. Rooted in the individual knowing stream, it carries the tension that sparks personal evolution. This gate does not fight for survival alone. It fights for integrity. When aligned, its struggles become catalysts for clarity, revealing what is truly worth devotion. Its power lies in discerning which challenges are meaningful and which are distractions. In the not-self, Gate 38 fights out of fear rather than conviction. We take opposition personally, seeing threat in difference, or defining identity through conflict. Arguments replace purpose, and struggle becomes addiction. The mind seeks constant resistance to feel alive, mistaking confrontation for strength. Without inner clarity, this energy collapses into bitterness, cynicism, or despair. The work with Gate 38 is to locate your true battle, the one that enlivens rather than depletes you. Ask, is this fight aligned with my soul's direction? Stand for what feels essential and release what is merely habitual resistance. Struggle becomes sacred when it is in service to meaning. Your courage awakens others to find purpose in their own challenges, transforming opposition into revelation. Gate 54. Ambition. The Marrying Maiden. Location: Root Center. Channel 5432. The Channel of Transformation. Circuit: Tribal Ego Circuit. Ego Defense Process. Theme: The Gate of Drive. The fuel to rise through ambition and devotion. Not self-distortion, social climbing, manipulation, resentment towards hierarchy, burnout. Gate 54 is the alchemical root of ambition, the pulse to transform material striving into spiritual ascent. Within the tribal ego stream, this energy seeks recognition and advancement not just for the self, but for the tribe's prosperity. When aligned, Gate 54 aspires from devotion, marrying drive with faith. It understands that worldly success is meaningful only when it serves collective elevation. In the shadow, the not-self chases ambition without alignment. We pursue relationships for gain, use charm to secure position, or resent others' success. The sacred hunger for progress turns into desperation for status or validation. We burn out trying to make it, forgetting that ambition is meant to serve something higher than ego. The fuel of transformation becomes entrapment when detached from purpose. The work with Gate 54 is to consecrate your ambition. Ask not only how to rise, but why. Notice when your drive contracts into comparison or control, and reconnect it to service and integrity. Your gift is to demonstrate that success and spirit need not be separate. True ambition is devotional. It elevates both self and others through the grace of right alignment. When your striving becomes prayerful, transformation follows naturally. Gate 61. Inner Truth. Location: Head Center. Channel 6124. The Channel of Awareness. Circuit: Individual Knowing Circuit. Theme: The pressure to know, the mystical drive to uncover inner truth. Not self-distortion, obsessive thinking, self-doubt, false certainty, spiritual arrogance, confusing mystery with confusion. Gate 61 is the pulse of mystery, the pressure within the head center that drives humanity to seek meaning beyond form. As part of the individual knowing circuit, it operates through sudden, mutative insight that cannot be forced or reasoned into being. This is the gate of inspiration and revelation, where the unknowable calls to be known. The pressure here is not logical or emotional, it is existential, a demand to touch truth directly. When honored correctly, Gate 61 becomes a doorway into profound inner stillness, where truth is not discovered through analysis, but revealed through silence. In shadow, the not-self mind tries to manage the mystery. This shows up as compulsive questioning, over-researching, or clinging to spiritual teachers and ideologies for false certainty. Some may inflate their knowing, speaking with authority to mask insecurity, while others reject the mystical entirely, fearing its ambiguity. The distortion is not in the mystery itself, but in our impatience with it, the need to make the unknowable tidy and explainable. The integration is surrender. Practice resting in the pressure without reaching for answers. Let the mystery be alive in you rather than something to solve. Insight arises spontaneously when the mind grows quiet enough to receive it. Truth reveals itself only to the one who no longer grasps for it. Gate 60. Limitation. Location, root center. Channel 63, the channel of mutation. Circuit, individual knowing circuit. Theme, the pressure of limitation as a gateway to innovation. Not self-distortion, impatience, despair, escapism, rebellion against natural limits, creative burnout. Gate 60 is the mutative pressure of form, the awareness that limitation is the structure through which transformation becomes possible. Rooted in the individual knowing circuit, this energy carries the tension between what is and what could be. Every mutation must bow to the rules of form before it can take shape. The healthy expression of this gate honors constraint as the necessary container that births new order. Limitation here is not punishment, but creative law. In its shadow, Gate 60 resists the boundaries of reality. The not-self grows frustrated by time, rules, or physical limits, pushing too hard for progress or collapsing into hopelessness when things move slowly. Others numb themselves with distraction, refusing to face the discomfort of restriction. This resistance blocks the mutation itself, because transformation cannot occur outside of the form that holds it. Integration begins with acceptance. Notice where you fight what you cannot yet move. Meet limitation as a wise gatekeeper, not an enemy. Each perceived block invites humility and patience, creating the stability required for lasting change. When you embrace your current container, you allow life to evolve you in its own timing. Gate 41, decrease. Location, root center. Channel 4130, the channel of recognition. Circuit, the collective sensing circuit, abstract process. Theme, the fuel of imagination, the pressure to begin an experience. Not self-distortion, restlessness, chasing novelty, fantasizing without follow-through, emotional addiction. Gate 41 is the seed of desire, the initiating pulse in the root center that compresses experience into its essence. As the starting codon of the human design mandala, it represents the pressure to begin the next emotional cycle of humanity's story. Within the collective sensing circuit, this gate fuels imagination, giving rise to all experiential journeys. Its power lies in selective restraint, knowing which desires are worth beginning. In shadow, this fuel leaks through endless fantasy. The not-self burns energy imagining everything, yet committing to nothing, always reaching for a new adventure, romance, or a creative project to avoid emptiness. Others may get trapped in emotional cravings, mistaking stimulation for fulfillment. The result is exhaustion, disillusionment, or a perpetual sense of incompletion. The integration is discernment. Practice waiting for the right invitation or emotional clarity before acting. Allow desire to ripen until it feels true, not urgent. When imagination serves alignment rather than escape, it becomes the fertile ground for meaningful experience and genuine emotional growth. Gate 19, Wanting, Approach. Location, Root Center. Channel, 1949, the channel of synthesis. Circuit, Tribal Ego Circuit, defense process. Theme, the sensitivity that seeks closeness and material support. Not self-distortion, neediness, emotional manipulation, people-pleasing, dependency, fear of rejection. Gate 19 is the pulse of sensitivity, the pressure from the root center that drives us towards communion and resource exchange. As part of the tribal circuit, it attunes to the material and emotional needs of others, sensing what is required for survival and connection. This gate opens the approach between individual and tribe, between the human and the divine, through shared support and recognition. In its shadow, sensitivity becomes insecurity. The not-self may cling to relationships for safety, overextend generosity to gain approval, or manipulate others emotionally to avoid abandonment. Others swing the opposite way, shutting down empathy and becoming harshly independent. Both expressions reflect the same fear, the belief that needs make us weak or unworthy of love. Integration begins with self-honoring. Feel your sensitivity as strength, not fragility. Instead of demanding closeness, cultivate it through presence and reciprocity. Ask for what you need without apology, and listen for what others need without rescuing. True approach arises from balanced exchange, where giving and receiving flow in natural rhythm, grounded in mutual respect. Conclusion. You've just traveled through all 64 gates of the Rave Mandala, the complete wheel of human experience. From Gate 13's silent listening to Gate 19's sensitive approach, each gate has offered a doorway into understanding how consciousness moves through form, how individuality serves the collective, and how we're all participating in the same vast experiment of being human. The beauty of the mandala is that it's not linear, it's circular. The ending is the beginning. Gate 19 closes the quarter of mutation with the pressure to approach, to reach out, to need the other. And that approach leads us back to Gate 13, the listener, who receives what we bring. The wheel keeps turning. Experience becomes memory. Memory becomes wisdom. Wisdom informs the next cycle of experience. This is the living intelligence of the human design system. It maps not just who we are, but how we evolve. The 4 quarters show us that human purpose is fulfilled through multiple dimensions. Mind questions and witnesses. Form expresses and builds. Bonding tests and refines. Mutation transforms. No quarter is more important than another, each one essential, each one offering gifts we cannot find elsewhere. You are all 4 quarters. We all are. What makes this knowledge come alive is your own experimentation. Human design isn't something to believe, it's something to live, to test, and to watch unfold in your everyday experience. Notice your gates in action. Observe your circuits. Feel the difference between your defined centers and your openness. Pay attention to what happens when you follow your strategy and authority instead of your conditioned mind. The 64 gates aren't just concepts to memorize, they're frequencies you're already living. Some are your conscious gates, defined in your chart, expressing through your personality. Others are your unconscious design, shaping how you move through the world without even knowing it. And the gates you don't have, you experience them through others, through the conditioning field, through the constant exchange of energy that makes us human together. As you continue your human design journey, return to these gates again and again. Each time you listen, you'll hear something new, because you'll be different. The mandala doesn't change, but your relationship to it deepens. That's the gift of the system. It grows with you, revealing layers you couldn't see before, meeting you exactly where you are. Thank you for traveling the mandala with me. May these 64 gates serve as companions on your path, reminding you that you're not here to be anyone but yourself, and that being yourself fully and unapologetically is the greatest contribution you can make to the whole. The wheel turns, the journey continues, and somewhere right now, Gate 13 is listening for your story.